I'm so happy you're here. Oh, I met Sage at a wild woman event.
Hmm.
So two wild women gathering. Who knows what'll all transpire during this conversation?
I love that for us.
Yeah, me too. And the
Epic,
Sage
really.
too. Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Yes, owning it now.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, so that was in December, and this is the first time that I
Mhm.
get to see your smiling face, but I'm hoping to meet in IRL again soon. So
Yes,
maybe we can plan
yes.
something. But not to take up too much time with that. I really want to dive into this relationship anarchy because I'm so turned on by the word anarchy or being rebellious in and of itself. And I have no idea what it means or what it means to you or
Mm.
all those things.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And yeah, I really resonate with the anarchy term. It's one that I am really fond of as well. Uh, relationship anarchy is fairly new to love styles and relationship structures. I'm sure people have been practicing it, right, for a
Mm.
very long time. But I think kind of the layman culture of the terminology and also research on it and integrating it into colloquial conversations around relationships is very new. And I think there can be a number of different types of definitions that people use for it. I think the one that really stands out for me is thinking about relationships from a framework of uprooting and dismantling belief systems and structures that create systems of oppression in relationship.
Mm.
And I think that's something we don't talk about enough, about how when we get into relationship with people, how we can really impose a lot of systems of oppression onto them
Mm.
just through the way we love them. And I
Mm.
think there's a lot wrapped up in that, right? Evolution and the way that we have evolved as human beings, the arrival of marriage, and specifically marriage as a way to shift property and ownership, right, through women and their bodies. And, when we were paying dowries for marriages and things like that. And the idea, I think, for a long time was that more open relationships created too much of a bottleneck for men, and women were gravitating in heavier numbers towards individual men, which was leaving other men out. And as we got more evolved in the industrial era, and as agriculture was more evolved, and we really moved into this kind of white picket fence, nuclear family structure, this idea of one woman and one man together in marriage really became a form of a system of oppression,
Mm.
for what I believe to be relationships and love, because I think we're all hindered by that. I don't think it's just women who are deeply impacted by that. But I will say that as a woman, being a relationship anarchist is my form of liberation. It is how I liberate myself
Mm.
from, ideals or belief systems that people want to hold me to about my own freedom and agency.
Mm.
And so the thing I love about relationship anarchy is that it invites us to really think about, what does agency and autonomy in relationship look like? And
Mm.
how can we create relationships that have their own meaning and have their own structure that is solely dictated by the people inside them versus what society is telling us, or what our family is telling us,
Lord.
or right, or our
Yeah.
communities are telling us about what relationships have to look like and be like.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious for you, as you're hearing me talk about that, what resonates for
Oh,
you,
and there's so much that comes up. Like I think about like the conditioning that we're given, as far as like mindsets or different beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the societal pressures for sure. I'm curious about like how you even discovered it. I
Yeah.
wrote down like that your own agency and autonomy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious like how it was gonna be defined because I was like, okay, well, aren't we always in relationship to something or someone at some
Hmm.
time? So I didn't
Always.
know if it was like, a complete like saying no to that or what it meant.
Yeah.
So it's like rediscovering your own personal freedom or liberation within relationships.
Yeah, and then giving freedom to relationships, right? So if
Mm.
you think about it, many times, people will be like, oh, your spouse should be the most important person in your life, and you should
Mm.
sacrifice everything for them, or your kids, right? Or this other relationship that you have, familial relationships, whatever it might be. And we kind of place those relationships on a hierarchy.
Mm.
And certain relationships get certain things, and other relationships don't.
Mm.
And while I think that that is appropriate, right, to have boundaries in our relationships for what certain relationships get and what certain relationships don't, I think it's important that we interrogate with ourselves why that is and
Mm-hmm.
why we're putting those certain boundaries on relationships, right?
Yeah. And is it
So I think
coming
about it
from us?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
exactly. Is it
yeah.
coming from ourselves? Is it coming from the other people in the relationship with us, right?
Mm,
Because
mhm,
I think that there is a lot of ways that we can get into relationship but not be clear about what we want.
mhm.
And then it's oftentimes a mismatched situation, or people are really struggling with trying to understand how to find themselves in the relationship because they don't fully understand what the boundaries are in the relationship. And
Mhm.
I think for me, just to take it a step further than just kind of thinking about my own agency and autonomy, it's also about breaking free of some of the belief systems and ways of being that society has taught us to be. I think one of those things is that we can't be physically affectionate with our friends or people that we're not in romantic relationships with. And the reality is, the research shows that all of us are pretty much touch starved. Many of us have not been
Mm,
hugged or held in a very long time since we were kids, mainly. And this disproportionately affects those socialized as men as well.
yeah.
The idea of receiving emotional support, the idea of receiving affection, those types of things. Oh, you can't hold hands with your friends, you can't hug your friends, you can't do this because your friends have to fall in a certain type of relationship structure that has all of these arbitrary boundaries that we didn't even really agree to. We've just somehow succumbed to and said, okay, we'll just treat our friendships that way.
Yeah, or the value even too placed on like romantic relationships
Yes.
compared to friendships. And I'm like, right
Yes.
now, being, primarily single,
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
dating, um, but my girlfriends or like my friends have
Yeah.
been there through decades.
Yes.
They've been my
Yes.
longest lasting
Yes.
relationship. So uh,
Yes. I was literally just with a friend of mine who I've known since I was 18. I mean, we grew up together
mhm.
and I held her baby for the first time. Like,
Aw,
and had I been in a relationship that didn't allow me to travel to Florida and travel to be away for a week and a half caring for another person and their child, I wouldn't have been able to been afforded that opportunity. And so I think that's kind of what I mean when I say the anarchy part of relationship is, can we uproot systems of oppression, which is, can we give each other freedom in
mm,
the way that we love and relate to one another? Or do I feel this sense of ownership over you, or that you are my
mm,
property, or that you belong to me in some way because we're in a romantic connection, right? And that
mhm.
doesn't mean that I, think we should disable having boundaries or having, agreements in relationships about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate based on who's involved. I actually very much think we should do
Yeah.
that. I just think that we have to be very, very, very good about interrogating where those boundaries are coming from and why we feel the need to place them onto other people.
Mhm.
And I think, this has just really taught me a lot about myself, a lot of the, wounds that I have, a lot of the triggers that I have, and healing that I need to do in my own self around relationships and how I relate to others. And really thinking about, do I give other people their freedom, or am I trying to control? Am I trying
Mm,
to, right, create
mhm.
some sort of structure with them where they do what I want them to do?
Yeah, to feel
And
safe or something.
yes, to feel a sense of control, to feel safety,
Mhm.
right? If they always do what I think they're going to do, or if they always do what I want them to, I don't ever have to sit in any of my negative feelings or discomfort about what they are doing.
Mm.
Right.
Mm,
And I think
mhm.
relationship anarchy can invite in a lot of opportunity for desire. And I think that's, the intersection of the business that I've started, right? Of thinking about how have we oriented around our desires over the course of our life? And do we have any systems of oppression in the way that we desire, right? Do we
Yeah.
allow ourselves to desire? Do we feel shame? Do we feel fear? And then do we oppress ourselves from going after those desires or speaking those desires or even naming them?
Oh,
And
I
how does
have
that show up for
recently.
us? Ooh, tell me, tell me, tell me,
Oh,
tell me.
yeah. No, well, also, I want to circle back. I'm curious, like, how you even discovered or, found this self-inquiry process for yourself. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, just recently I noticed a fear of rejection came up. I saw this like
Yeah.
really attractive person that I wanted to approach at the airport, and then,
Yeah.
someone else. And I guess it was in the lounge too later. So I like bookended my trip. One was at the beginning, one
Yeah.
was at the end. I guess I was given the opportunities.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to be the one to have been approached. I'm like, maybe if I just will my desire enough or make eye
Mm.
contact. I'm like,
Ooh.
and now I'm like, okay, next time I am gonna make an approach, and like, so what if I get rejected? It'll be good practice. I think it also stems from like being bullied as a child and like
Yeah,
having that fear of rejection in there.
for sure.
Um, yeah, or maybe just wanting to be more in that feminine receptive energy
Yeah.
too. A little
Yeah.
combo, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting too, because desire, it's not just about what you want, it's also about how you feel about what you want,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So, right, like the desire that I have to approach this person, how do I feel about that? Is my fear of rejection coming up? Am I feeling worthy? Am I feeling like I want to chase? I don't want to be chased. Like, what is that is coming up for me? And I actually think that the way that we orient emotionally around our desires is attuned to how we act around our desires. And you actually kind
Mm.
of just surfaced that for us, right? The fear of rejection, surfaced for you an action of like, how do I will this in my mind to make this
Yeah.
happen, right? And so it's just so interesting to think about that, right? About with our
Mhm.
desires that the way we feel about them is so important. And I think that's what brought me to this place of
Mm.
I was really realizing I had this deep desire for freedom. I was like, I
Mm.
just want to feel free in my relationships. I did monogamy for, the first 6 years of, I started dating around 14, 6 or 7 years till I was about 21. I did monogamy. And every time I did monogamy, I always just felt like something was missing and that I felt stifled and really caged in my relationship. And it wasn't necessarily that I had partners who were super controlling or obsessive or abusive or anything, but it just didn't feel free.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
even, and I think you heard me tell the story at the retreat, even when I was in one of the most beautiful relationships I'd ever been in a marriage that I was so grateful to be in, I still had to choose to walk away. And
Mm.
that semblance of freedom was a big part of that,
Mhm.
and thinking about how do I find freedom in my relationships. And so I started with a love style orientation of polyamory. So dating multiple people at once, having multiple relationships. And while I think that can be a really great avenue to explore freedom in relationships, I think that it still continued to made me feel stifled because polyamory can sometimes just be multiple monogamous relationships,
Mm.
if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Oh, like
Like
2 couples getting
yeah,
together
it
or
can just feel as if you're just kind of
Oh,
regurgitating the monogamous structure over and over again with
yeah.
multiple
Okay.
people.
Okay.
So like you kind of get into relationship and then you get into relationship with multiple people and then you're thinking about the relationship escalator. So we meet and then do we get married and then do we have kids and then
Mm.
how do we prioritize that? And then there's a lot of
Future building
hierarchy.
or
Yeah, and a lot of hierarchy, right? So maybe there's a
Yeah.
couple that has been together for a while. So then they like label themselves as primaries. So
Yeah,
then,
I was yeah,
yeah,
that's what I was curious, and I loved your
yeah.
perspective on at Wild Woman was that and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm
No,
just
no,
like, yeah,
no.
'cause I asked you, I was like, "So do you have,
Yeah,
like, a primary partner?"
yeah,
'Cause in my that was, like, my, kind of, I've dabbled in it a little bit, but, like,
yeah,
outside looking in, kinda like,
yeah,
do you
yeah,
have one
yeah.
or is it more like equal playing field? So, yeah, continue, but I I just wanted to reference that.
Yeah, thank you. No, no, and I think that idea, right, that there's a primary, that there's a
Mhm.
hierarchical structure even amongst the group of dynamics of relationships still feels like systems of oppression to me,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And again, I'm basically speaking from my experience and just how I orient as a relationship anarchist, not to make any judgments or biases towards any types of love styles. But
Yeah.
I think for me with the polyamory, it still just felt that there was still hierarchy and still systems of oppression kind of within that. And relationship anarchy was kind of the next step out of that, that really helped me pull apart those systems of
Mm.
oppression and really thinking about my own agency and autonomy. So one of the big things for me is that my time is my own. Nobody owns my
Mm.
time. So
Mhm.
you just because you're my romantic partner doesn't mean you're guaranteed my time in any way, shape, or
Mm.
form other than what I am willing and able to provide for the relationship. And then
Mhm.
you at any point get to decide or get to communicate to me, hey, I'm not seeing you enough, or like, hey, I would like
Mm.
some more time, or hey, the connection is not feeling strong enough without more time for me. And then we get to make some decisions about if we want to restructure the relationship or if we want to continue forward or however we want to navigate that.
Yeah, I
But I
like
think,
that one a lot.
yeah, and I think
I love my
relationship,
solo time.
yes,
And
yes,
and a lot
yes.
of it I had like my past partner, he said, he's like, "I understand that you like to have your solo alone time, but it also seems like a choice to not spend time with me."
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that we have to deal with our desires is that people will have reactions to them.
Mhm.
And we have to stand firm in our own desire to say,
Yeah.
you know what? No. Like I hear that
Mhm.
you're sad and I hear that this is disappointing, and I
Mhm.
can hold space for that for sure.
Mhm.
And I'm still not going to change my mind
Yeah.
because this is what is right for me. And Glennon Doyle wrote this really great book called Untamed, and in it she
Yeah.
talks about, she said this quote just sits with me every I hope you disappoint as many people as you
Mm,
have to so that you never disappoint yourself. And that
mhm,
to me is like the quintessential framework for desire for me.
mm,
How do I go after my desires in a way where I never disappoint myself and feel safe and comfortable
mm,
disappointing everybody that I need to in order to work towards that?
I gotta mark that as a clip. I'm
Right.
like, I'm like, that was such a potent question.
And I feel desire can be vilified in such a deep way, right? I mean, I remember when I was growing up, it was like, if it's not a need and it's just a want, you don't talk about it.
Mm,
Don't ask for it,
mm,
right? And I know many of us that are millennials and maybe younger, we've or older, we've like experienced that framework, right? This idea that like you're not allowed to have wants or that your wants are frivolous or less
mm,
important than like survival needs and all of these
mm,
things. And I just found that to be such an interesting social dynamic because for me, I actually think that desire is life force. When we desire things, when we want things, when we have things that we are wanting and desiring and motivated for, it gives us life. It makes us live. It makes us feel
mm.
alive because we actually feel like we want something. And I
Yeah.
think with desire in particular, like wanting something, believing that you can have something, and then also being able to stand true in your own desire to say, and it's okay if other people don't want that. It's okay if other
Mhm.
people feel disappointed by that. It's okay if other people have hard feelings about that. But what I know to be true for me is that this is my desire and this is what I'm going to go after, right? And it's
Mhm.
disappointing people is not the same as harming or abusing them, right? And so when we think about desire, I think that's where people get a little stuck is that like sometimes our desires can abuse or harm other people, right? And that's when I say we have to have consciousness around our desires, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to be aware of what we're desiring and what we're asking for. But other people's disappointment, other people's upset, other people's feelings and orientation around our desire is not our responsibility and we
Yeah.
don't have to
Their
hold that.
task.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just recently read, what is it? The Courage to Be Disliked, and
Mhm.
I love it
I just
because
bought that.
it's so good.
Okay,
And I'm
good.
like, okay, yeah, and it speaks to a lot of what you're already talking about
Yeah.
assigning the task kind of. And so their task is whether to, their emotional reaction or their feelings or whether they like me or not, their judgments, that's on them.
Yes.
It's kind of like the serenity prayer, like
Yeah. Yeah.
accepting what I can change,
Yep.
what is it, wisdom to know the difference, and
Yeah.
whatever the last piece is.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
no, no,
butchered the shit out of
I'm on
that,
board with
but
you. I'm on board
yeah.
with you. I'm there, I'm there.
I just was like, wow, yeah, and it kind of resonates. I think there's that big Mel Robbins, let them kind of thing
Yeah.
go on them, like let them have that judgment, let them.
Yeah.
It may be holding you back to stopping if you're acting or not wanting to act on your desires for fear of that.
Yeah.
Holding back. I think a lot of our desires too are kind of like whispers or nudges for our soul's evolution.
Yes. And I think about this a lot, which is that desire percolates differently in all of us because it's so
Mm,
specific to each of us.
mm,
Right? Like you and I do not
mm,
have the same desires. We might have similar desires or
mhm,
desires that fall in the same arena, environment,
mhm,
category, whatever it might be. But we don't ever have the same two desires.
mm,
And even people like running for presidency or going after the same thing, that they don't actually have the same desire.
mhm,
They have the same outcome that they want to become president
mhm,
or to win this thing or to get first place. But the
mhm.
desire for why they want first place, that's all different for all of us,
Oh yeah,
right?
like intention, feeling, desire.
Yeah.
What is a feeling that you want on when you get that desire, have that desire, or
Yeah.
so much there. Oh, it's so juicy.
It is. It is. And I think freedom for me goes hand in hand with desire. If I have freedom and agency and autonomy over myself and my sovereign being, then I have the freedom to go after everything that I want
Mm,
because I
mhm,
don't have to rely on my sovereignty being reflected to me by someone else.
mhm,
Like I believe in my own sovereignty, I believe in myself, and so I'll go after the things that I want and disappoint everybody that I need to because I believe in myself and I believe that my desires are valid and worthy. And so again, I
mhm,
think that brings us full circle back to what I was saying before, which is that how we feel about our desires is so important.
mhm.
Because if and we inherently feel unworthy of the things that we want, we will never take action to go get them.
Or shame around them too.
Hmm.
I had to unpack a lot of shame about. I'm like, I don't think this is mine.
Yes.
I'm like, I think a
Yes.
lot of this was projected onto me. And like, okay, do I actually like this, or just retracing steps and like, I didn't go into it with like shame.
Yeah.
Was just following a curiosity or, exploring or something. And then it was, like whether the cultural conditioning or societal projections that, I could sense or feel or that was voiced. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's an interesting process. Now, you said you dabbled with or started in the polyamory
Uh-huh.
dynamic, which
Yeah.
I didn't even know existed until
Yeah.
like college or post college. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
heard of like, maybe like the multiple wives thing, but as far
Mhm.
as like being able to love two people at the same
Yeah.
time, I remember feeling like, oh wow, how is it even possible that I have this much love for two people at the same
Yeah.
time? Um, and I didn't have that framework or language surrounding it. So I was like, felt guilty, or felt like I
Yeah.
had to choose.
Yeah.
Um, so I was curious, like what your step or evolution was from exploring in that to, is what your current practice is the relationship anarchy?
I would say that
Is
my
that what
current practice is
Yeah.
more aligned with relationship anarchy
Okay.
than
Okay.
more polyamory. Although, I think people looking in would probably be like, "Oh, okay, polyamory would probably be the easier terminology for them
Yeah.
to kind of grapple with." But I would say I operate more as a relationship anarchist, and the way that that shows up for me is usually when I meet people and I'm having conversations about getting into relationship.
Hmm.
The way that I'll express this is, I'm a relationship anarchist, and so what that means is that all of my relationships are completely dictated and created and structured solely by the people involved in them, which
Hmm.
means that my other partners do not have say in what I do with my other partners. My other
Hmm.
partners don't have the ability to tell me that I need to break up with someone or that, someone is not allowed to be in my life. They're not allowed to tell me who I'm allowed to be in relationship
Hmm.
or what type of relationship to be in.
Hmm.
And that agency and autonomy is very important to me because something that can be very, very shaky in polyamory is the feeling that your relationship isn't secure because there's another partner who can
Yeah.
create an opportunity for that relationship to disappear.
Oh, for sure. I'm kind of experiencing a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get into all the details
Yeah.
right
Yeah. Yeah.
now. But yeah, or feeling, yeah, I'm feeling not on the equal plane. It's
Yeah.
starting to, there's been some amends kind of made and some gestures and a little bit more communication. But yeah, I guess I kind of felt more like the unicorn coming in or
Yeah.
being, canceled. But
Yeah.
I think that there's just some more communication that needed to be had too. But
Yeah, and I think again, if you're not willing to really interrogate your relationship practices, it can be very easy to miss all of this and to
mm,
just think you're doing it fine. But when you involve other people's feelings and emotions and well-being into a conversation around relationships, it is very destabilizing to me personally to think that somebody could create a situation where the relationship could end outside of the will of the two people involved or however many people
mm-hmm,
involved.
mm,
And with relationship anarchy, it is that kind of stake in the ground of like, I am my own person, I am my own
mm,
sovereign being, and my relationships will be what I want them to be. And at any time we can have discussions about what's working for you and what's not working for you and all of
sure.
those things as well. And sometimes that comes with hard decisions of like, maybe this isn't actually a good fit. But at the same time, I think I would rather know that it's not a good fit through the course of deep, deep radical honesty in the beginning than getting 3 years in and then being like, oh, now we're being radically honest with each other and this
Mm,
isn't going anywhere. Right.
mm-hmm. I do. Yeah. That it's like I can still be radically honest and allow for myself to evolve. Cause I know you mentioned something about wanting what or knowing what you want when you go into a dynamic or relationship. But I know that over
Yeah.
time, definitely sometimes my wants and needs or desires change.
Change. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like, do I just communicate that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, with relationship anarchy, one of my big relationship axioms is that we live in relationships of truth. So I
Mm,
don't care what the truth is. I don't care how good, bad, ugly, nice, bow wrapped up that it is. I don't
mm,
care what the truth is. But
mm,
we will operate in our relationship in truth, which is that if you change your mind about something, if your desires change, and
mm.
they're going to, are you telling me about that? Are we talking about that? Are you
Mm,
being truthful with me about where you are? Right? Which
mm,
is that, again, that sovereignty of knowing yourself well enough to know that, like, even if my feelings have changed, or even if I need more, or even if I have desires, or even if I have needs that I need to speak, none of that changes my worth or value in this relationship. And even if I have to speak up and say, hey, I need more time with you, or I need more from you than you're able to give, and that person's like, hey, I can't give you any more,
mm.
that's a choice for me to then get to decide, is this a relationship I want to continue to still be in?
Mm.
And that's not about a failed relationship. That's not about them being dishonest in the beginning or anything like that. That's about, as we've evolved and grown and changed, are we still compatible? And I talk about
Mm.
this a lot on some of my TikToks about, if you get into a relationship with anyone, whether you're monogamous, non-monogamous, polyamorous, whatever, and your expectation is that they will be the exact same person they were when you met them as to when you end the relationship with them, you're sorely misguided. And that is so unrealistic, because the reality is change is the only constant.
Mhm.
We're always changing, the world's always changing, things are always changing, relationships are changing and evolving and growing. And my true belief is that if the relationship cannot handle the change, whether that is because people can't speak truth or people can't navigate whatever the truth is, whatever that is, if it can't handle the change will be a breakup, the change will be the restructure, the change
Mm.
will be whatever evolution your relationship goes through next.
Yeah.
And so if you're constantly trying to control your relationship to ensure there is never any change, you're really just kicking the can down the road, because change is coming whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And that change is going to have an impact. And that impact
Yeah.
could be breaking up, but it could also be this like new evolution of a relationship, a
Yeah,
new
for
rebirth of a
sure.
relationship. Yeah.
Or an opportunity to fall in love with a different version or expression of
Yeah.
someone, like,
Yeah.
you're different. I know I was a different person, like, as a,
Same.
so many,
Same.
as I'm like, yeah, express myself differently every day.
Yeah. I have a partner I've been with for 5 years, and I'm like,
Mm,
I'm totally different than when we first met. And so
yeah,
is he. And so, um, I think in relationships, freedom is what allows for change. And I think
yeah.
that's what I find so powerful about relationship anarchy, is that because there is so much freedom, there's so much ability for change, right? You
Mhm.
can change your mind. You can decide, hey, I'm going to take certain things off the table for myself right now. Maybe I'm going to go on a
Mm,
celibacy break. Maybe I'm going to go on a
mm,
romantic break. Maybe I'm going
mhm.
to only invite in certain types of intimacy for my life right now. And it really gives you a lot of ability to make and form these relationships that you really value and are really aligned with whatever it is that you are working towards at that time, and
Yeah.
whatever it is that your desires are. And let me just say this. Let me just say this about relationship anarchy, because they say it takes a village to raise a child, but I also think that it also takes a village to raise the best version of yourself.
Mm.
I cannot count on my partner to give me everything that I need to be
Oh,
the best version of myself.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like we were talking about, my girlfriends, my spiritual connections, my work connections, like all these different relationships, my family, all these different relationships pour into me and help build and create the best version of myself
Mhm.
through the way that I leverage those relationships in the best possible way. So take my family, for example. My family and I could probably be like on total opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of belief systems, ideologies, relationship structures, all of that. And yet I just spent a week with them and
Mhm.
enjoyed my time with them and loved every second of it.
Mm.
And the reason I think I was able to do that is because those relationships are built in a way where we give each other exactly what we're desiring or needing, and then we build everything else around that, right? And
Mhm.
so, my father saying he wants to be close to me and wants to be a part of
Aw.
my life, and me having to have the conversation with him, okay, well, then you have to be comfortable with me bringing multiple partners for Christmases or for holiday events
Mm.
or house blessings or whatever we're doing. And I need to know that even if you're not fully understanding or fully capable of grasping what that means for me, that you will be loving and kind to the people I bring into your home.
Mm.
Right. And so we have that agreement together. It's not an
I love
agreement that
that.
he has to believe in what I believe, or that he has to think that this is an appropriate way to
Yeah.
behave or whatever. I don't actually care. I
Yeah.
don't actually care. Right.
Such a good explanation
Yeah, like
too.
I just don't care. But what I will say is that for us to have a relationship, for you to have what you want, right? Which is a relationship with me, and
Mhm.
to know me, and to feel like you are a part of my life, you have to be loving and kind to the people who are in my life, even if you don't fully
Mm.
understand it. And
Mm.
it's given us this really beautiful opportunity to grow together. And I mean,
For
I was
sure.
there with two of my partners for a week just now, and all of the growth that we all had together, that my partners had while they were there, my family had together, like just from the sheer nature of being around each other and a sense of freedom, that we could
Yeah.
all just operate and behave as we are and be authentic, and nobody was going to be anything but loving and kind to one another.
Yeah. And then kind of, and for the partners too, like going into that, dynamic, it's like
Yeah.
there's a lot more breathing room and freedom. And yeah, I feel like that, with what you mentioned too about, trying on different like phases or,
Yeah.
whether it's celibacy or whether it's,
Hmm.
um, dating yourself for a while
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, there seems like to be a lot of freedom for experimentation and like trying things on. I'm like, okay, let me see how I feel about this. And
Yeah.
I also just think that even if a relationship ends or, changes or
Hmm.
in the form of heartbreak or a breakup,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's a failure. I always think,
Same.
yeah, I think it's a completion. I look at it as a completion. And for me, like, even my ex that I have not contacted or, I mean, not talked to or seen in years, I still have love for him.
So
Like that
much.
love
Yeah.
didn't go away.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I love what you just said about it's not a failure, it's a completion. And I like really want to drop into that because yes, as someone who's had a lot, and I've had a lot of relationships, girl. Like I said, I've been doing this since I was 21. So
Yeah.
I've just
Cool.
had a lot of relationships. And so, when I talk to people about that, I can feel the like, oh, so a lot of breakups. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of them. Like, and they've taught me, I've learned something every single time. And I've learned so much about myself and what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that's so beautiful is that you can put a timestamp on something so that you can enjoy it for its full breath of what it is without holding on to the
Mm.
attachment of longevity. And I think that
Mm.
is so deeply beautiful. And
Mhm.
we do it all the time, but people don't recognize that. Think about when someone goes into hospice and you agree to take care of them for a few months.
Mm.
That's a relationship anarchy structure. You're entering into a relationship with someone where you're caretaking, providing for them for 3 months or however long they're going to be in hospice. That is a structure for a relationship. That person passes, right? So that's a
Mhm.
completion to the relationship. It's not a failure to the
Mm-mm.
relationship, right? But we do those types of dynamics all the time. We just specifically don't want to do them for some reason with our romantic dynamics. And
Mhm.
we have this weird kind of hesitancy to open ourselves up. I mean, a great example is maybe you're traveling abroad for a month and you run into someone and you like have this crazy connection with them, but you restrict yourself, right? Because you have the desire, but you feel so discomforted by the idea that the outcome could not be longevity, that you could fall in
Mm.
love with someone or care for someone so deeply and lose them in a month that it keeps
Mm.
you from acting on that desire. And
Mhm.
that's a choice. I'm not saying that's
Mhm.
a bad choice, but it's a choice,
Mhm.
right? Whereas for me, I think what relationship anarchy gives me is the freedom to say my choice doesn't have to be based in fear. My choice
Mhm.
doesn't have to be based in the fear that I will lose something or that I won't come to a place of success on something,
Yeah.
because I'm actually just going to
Ooh.
choose to create the parameters by what exists instead of this arbitrary idea of what's supposed to exist.
Yeah. No, to me, I'm writing it down so I don't forget that.
Yeah.
It symbolizes an acceptance of death or of
Yes.
impermanence because
Yes.
we're all gonna die.
Yes.
You don't know it or not.
Yeah. Surprise.
Everything is impermanent. Kind of like what
Yeah.
you mentioned about the, change is the inevitable. It's like
Yeah.
everything is impermanent.
Yeah.
Just by living, being here itself.
Being alive. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, seasons, nature, it's all of it, right? It's
Yeah.
all the evolution, the death, and the rebirth. And we talked a lot about this at the retreat, right? And it's so interesting because I remember growing up, and one of the things that they used to try to scare us with was curiosity killed the cat. Well,
Ah,
yeah, she died because she needed to go through a death and a rebirth. Like, she died 9 lives because she needed all the rebirths. Like, you didn't tell me she got rebirthed. You just told me she died.
ah, I love that so much. Yeah, she has 9 lives, but we
Yeah.
you
We just
didn't
talked about
tell
the
me that.
one time she
Yeah.
died. Like, I was like, okay, like, what?
No wonder I like curiosity so much. I've always been curious because if I was told not to do it,
Yeah,
then there was
same.
like an instant like, if you tell me
Okay,
not to do
I got
something.
to. Yeah, and I mean it's in all the stories. Adam and
Mhm.
Eve, like
Mm.
Eve eating the apple, Lilith not wanting to be of submission to Adam, so then she becomes the
Mm.
snake that encourages Eve to eat the apple. Like, be curious, like that.
Yeah.
It is the apple of knowledge, and
Mm.
curiosity is what evolves us because when we become curious about something, we inevitably learn something. And
Mm-hmm.
when we learn, we grow. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what we learn, it changes us. And
Yeah.
I can see why society would not want that for us and
Oh,
would
yeah.
deem it, scary or death-like, or telling us to be wary of it or not go after it, to not be
Mm-hmm.
curious, to just be easily controlled. And I think that again goes back to what I was saying before about RA really being about liberation.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I get to dictate what my relationships are and what they mean to me and what I'm allowed to do and give myself freedom, no one will ever be able to tell me what I can and cannot do.
Mm. Oh, yeah. There's like an instant repellent for
Yeah.
me if you tell me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
mm, There's something I was going to say. It kind of floated off into the ethers. I'm like right at
Mhm.
that edge of my luteal.
Yeah. Same. Same. I'm also about to start, girl. I'm like,
But between that and eclipse season,
I
I'm like,
know.
"Ugh." Yeah. And speaking of death, I'm like, I don't know if you're experiencing this. I feel like I'm on a new timeline, but I
Yes.
can still feel the crumbling of the old.
Yes. I just went through a breakup yesterday, so
Oh,
that was fun.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, restructuring. And so
Yeah.
that was a new person I was seeing. And so
Mhm.
some misalignments came out, and unfortunately it wasn't a good fit. But yeah, it's just we're in this Venus retrograde, we're in this Mercury retrograde. So just there's a
Mm.
lot surfacing right now for all of us. And I think in relationships in particular, this is the time that we're really like 10 toes down on what
Yeah.
is it that I actually value? What is it that I actually want? And that Aries Venus retrograde is really, she's spicy. She's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 I don't want to, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, tell me
I
about
don't
it.
want
I
to do that.
am doing
I
a
don't want to do that.
burning I'm gonna do a burning ritual today or tomorrow because
Hmm.
a shadow or like hidden desire beneath something came to their awareness, and I was like, wow, I did
Mm.
not even like I desired, but if I went full force or came out as like a tantric healer or whatever,
Ooh, yeah, yeah,
shared
yeah.
all of these different experiences, it would officially mean okay, no repair of this former relationship. Or that's what
Mhm.
I was, the story I'm telling myself and all this stuff. And then
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to move in a little while. So I'm like clearing and cleaning stuff. And then I'm looking at this like box of, sentimental letters. And there's a part of me that is sentimental, but at the same time, I'm like, but am I clinging on that for
Yeah.
like for the hope of a rekindle?
Yeah.
And so I think it can be very powerful to have like this like sacred ceremony with myself and like read it and
Yes.
burn it and create spaciousness.
Great
So,
spaciousness, because that's all about eclipse season right now, right?
mm,
Letting go what needs to let go so that you can welcome in what's new. And for a long time, I would always be like, what does that mean externally? Like, what does that mean for like my relationships? And then I'm like, oh no, we're talking about me. It's coming from inside the house. The call. Okay, got it, got it, got it, got it. Like the call is from inside. Okay. So me, I need to let go. Like, and it's like my ego deaths, like constantly, right? Like,
mhm.
ooh, holding on to this like value of male validation. Ooh, holding
Mm.
on to this like feeling of like needing to be desired. Like, ooh, like just, and then realizing like, how much I keep myself in my own cages, right? Like just put myself
Mm.
in these cages in my brain, doors open, no lock on it whatsoever, but I'm just in there. Can't like for some reason just won't go out the door.
Like you got the
And
key dangling on
yeah,
your wrist.
yeah, yeah. And you're just like, man, I don't know. And then looking at
Yeah.
other things, right?
Well,
Yeah.
probably because it's known, right? The known versus unknown thing. We know
Yeah.
that version of ourselves or that attachment to our
Yes.
identity or that piece of our ego, or even though there may be this like wonderful, beautiful possibility that exists or that does exist in the unknown, it's like those safety mechanisms sometimes that keep me safe.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Protection.
for me, a big one, but the reason why I signed up for the Wild Woman thing was this. I was in this like ketamine series, and I'm like, there's something about wild. Like, I guess I had reverted to like the good girl conditioning, or
Yeah.
here's like all my offerings that I know are like acceptable
Yes.
to,
Yes.
are more palatable
Yes.
and that don't
Yes.
ruffle many feathers and da da da
Yeah.
da.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, my therapist was just like, yeah, you defaulted to like what was safe. And she's like, that we're creating this new neural pathway to a new way of being. I was
Yep.
like, wow, yeah. So when I came across, I was like, okay, well, check, yes, follow the wild.
And I really feel this too. My good girl has been really, really active. And it wasn't until we went to the Wild Woman retreat that I really started thinking about my bad girl. And honestly,
Mm,
Desire the Forbidden, she's all my bad girl. That's
Mm-hmm.
that whole business is my bad girl. She is the girl that was told she was too sexy, too
Mm,
whatever. And it's crazy because this idea in culture and, desire the forbidden, as much as it's about sexual liberation, it's about sexual liberation through education.
mm,
And it's about knowing ourselves and being educated about sex in a way and about our bodies that gives us that liberation.
mm,
And it's crazy to me because I felt like growing up, I was kept getting fed all of this rhetoric and media about sexuality and how you needed to be sexy and desired and all of this stuff. And, being Asian American and femme presenting and all of this, like all those intersections of,
mm-hmm.
seduction and fetishization and all of that, right? Being propelled onto me, projected on every man that walked by me. Like, and then having to sit with, but I'm not supposed to be that. Like this idea that
Mm,
like, oh, I'm getting all of this projected onto me. And instead of actually what I want to do with it, which is alchemize the shit out of it because it's energy, like lustful energy is still energy. Like, and it can get creepy and weird and all of those things. But at the same time, it's empowering for a
mm-hmm.
reason, right? Like it's energy. And so I think that some of the strongest dark women that exist are people who can alchemize that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was noticing that I wanted to alchemize, but the good girl in me was like, don't do that. Don't touch that energy.
Mm,
Don't do anything with that energy. That energy is just meant to be received. And then you just have to sit in your discomfort about it. And it wasn't until my bad girl came online that she was like, no, do some shit with it. Like, do
yeah.
something with that. Like, don't
Yeah.
just let people project shit onto you and do nothing with it
Mm-hmm.
because then it just sits and stagnates in your body.
Mm,
And for me with DTF, I'm kind of just like, yeah, I hope this ruffles your feathers. I hope it makes you upset. I hope it makes you so upset that you think about things differently. Like
mm,
and I think something that we talked about at the retreat is like, man, am I just so getting to a place of no longer feeling discomforted by activating people.
mm-hmm.
Because it is that good girl conditioning. Oh, don't,
Yeah.
don't,
And I
don't.
think for sure, and I think the trigger is a glimmer in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
If I mean, like, if you accept the opportunity to look at it and look at where it's coming from,
Yeah.
and possibly, you know, evolve or
Yeah.
look at yourself.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like, why
Yeah.
are you getting activated by something? Why
Yeah.
is my expression,
Yeah.
making you have a response
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's
or a
so interesting.
reaction?
Yeah. And it's so
Mhm.
interesting because for the longest time, I used to think activating people was wrong and it was
Mm,
bad. And that doing that made me a bad person.
mhm,
And that made me unsafe and made me not a good person to be around. I was actually
mm,
just talking to one of my partners about this today, about this like idea of emotional regulation. I
mm,
am all here for emotional regulation. I have a lot of relationships. I'm in conflict a lot. I'm in relationship conversations a lot. I am here for emotional regulation. But I think something we do to women and that women do to each other
mm,
is that we try to protect each other from our own feelings by trying to force regulation on each other.
mm,
Like I was telling somebody, like a girlfriend of mine, about something really traumatic that had happened to me, and I was super activated, and I was, having a pretty big response. And I was so shocked by her response to me, which was like, yeah, it sounds like you're just like really activated right now. And I think you just need some grounding and you're just better when you're grounded. And I'm like, it just made me feel so unable to express myself. Like
mhm,
it came in for me that voice of like, see, you're too big again.
mm,
You said it too much. And I'm a Leo. I'm a Leo sun and a Leo moon. Like everything for me is dramatic. Like it's a lot of fire. Okay. And then I have a Scorpio rising. So it's just steamy. I'm just steamy
love
in
it.
general. Like I'm just like, and so this is something I actually really struggle with. And I don't know that I'm right about this, but this is something I really struggle with in the conversations of conflict or even relationship dynamics of, I have to be calm, cool, and collected to have a conversation with you about something. Like that if something
Mm,
activates me, I have to take the time to like go away for a period of time to
mm,
like regulate myself, to like come back and have the conversation. And I'm like, this is where truth no longer becomes a part of the conversation, because oftentimes what we do in regulation is
Mm,
we gaslight ourselves into believing the thing that we're upset about is not actually something to be upset about, and then we walk
mm.
ourselves back into a state of regulation where we're like, everything is fine and I was just freaking out, instead of being like, no, you didn't keep your word to me and that pissed me off. It
Oh,
pissed me
yeah.
off that you said something to me and then changed your mind and went and did something else. Doesn't mean you can't change
Mm,
your mind, but I'm still pissed off about it. And I
mhm,
would like to say that I'm pissed off about it. Instead of
mhm.
coming in and being like, well, you did this thing and it just really made me angry. And like, I really struggle with this. And again, I don't think that I'm not going to say I'm right, because I do think that there is a lot to be said about emotional regulation. I do
Mhm.
support the idea of emotional regulation. I do practice it. I also think sometimes we just need to pop off a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Probably
Like,
both. I mean, but there have been times where I'm like, okay, I don't want to say anything that's unkind, so let me go
right.
back and like, yeah. But then there have been times where I was suppressed my emotional reaction
Yes.
versus okay, maybe I needed to go and like hit some pillows or hump some
Yeah.
pillows or
Yeah.
scream or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, like maybe I kind of like to live in the ands where
Yeah.
both can
Well, and
be
I think
true.
this is also for me something
Mhm.
about, and again, I don't know that I'm right about this, but I think it is something for me about being in relationship with each other, which is if I'm coming into a conversation, I'm like, hey, I'm coming in hot. Like, I'm having
Yeah.
some emotions. I'm coming in hot. Like, I'm about to pop off. You cool with that? Yes, you're cool. Then you
Mm,
should be able to hold space for me. No,
mm,
you're not cool. Then I can go
mhm,
regulate on my own and come back if that's
mhm.
not going to work for you. And I think something that we all need to be better about is that when someone is speaking to us or saying something in a way we don't like, we need to be like, hey, I understand you're upset, but I need you to like
Mm,
really watch what you're saying to me right now, because you're
mhm,
borderlining into being mean to me or being disrespectful to
mm,
me instead of expressing yourself.
mm.
And I think it's like, for me, the idea of that is so important to me, that not only can I show up to be respectful of you, but can you show up to respect yourself enough to not allow me
Mhm,
to treat you with disrespect? Right?
mm,
Because you best believe if I'm
mhm,
in a conversation and somebody starts speaking to me some type of way I don't like, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm hearing you and I want to hold space for you, but please do not disrespect me. Please do not yell at
mm,
me. Please do not curse at me. Please do not whatever.
mhm,
Continue though. I'd like to
mhm.
continue to hear you. Um, and I think this idea that we've got, like, there's just a lot that I feel like we've gotten to in the relationship space of like, it's just so important that everyone comes to the table emotionally regulated with their feelings on a nice little bow. And to the point that you were making, yes, we don't want to say things that are hurtful to each other or mean to each other. And I also think that safety in relationships is that I can make a mistake and be mean to
Yeah,
you and you will still love me.
yeah.
And so if there's no room for us to make that mistake because we've controlled the environment so heavily to not allow for expression in a way that could lead to a
Mm,
mistake, it's kind of, for me, that idea that we're trying to control to
yeah,
create this relationship environment that maybe ultimately is healthiest. Like, I would argue that maybe that is the healthiest, but it is not maybe the most authentic. And
yeah,
that is kind of where I rub into some tension, is how do you stay in a healthy relationship and do healthy work while also still being able to be authentic and
yeah,
express yourself?
yeah. Because I could also see where you could be held to an unrealistic expectation of like perfection. You know,
Yes.
of like this,
Yeah.
if this is, if I'm expressing myself or in a certain way, or I
Yeah.
have to walk away, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Like
I
I
think,
like the freedom to make messes.
yes.
The beauty
Yeah.
in the mess.
The beauty and the
The
mess and the,
masterpiece. Yeah.
yeah, and being able to, I think this is so important. The reality is, anybody you enter in a relationship with, 100% of the time, you will hurt them. Some way,
Mm,
shape, or form, there is going to be hurt in the relationship. Period, point blank. There's no avoiding it.
mhm,
Because when we get into relationship with people, we naturally activate and trigger them. So they
mm,
are going to be hurt. And you are absolutely going to make mistakes because nobody is perfect.
mm,
So for me, it's always about, how do we continue to co-create an environment where mistakes can happen and where we can show up and hurt each other and still have repair.
mhm.
And that comes with the level of consciousness that we're not abusing each other or hurting each other in a way
Yeah.
that is toxic or, creating a bunch of turmoil. But if there's no room for hurting each other and there's no room for mistakes, I personally don't believe that's a safe or healthy relationship, because then you can't fully be authentic, because authentic expression is making mistakes and hurting people.
Yeah. And I think that, so much of the human experience is to be felt. Like, I feel like we came here
Mhm.
to feel all of the
Mhm.
emotions. And so suppressing it or not expressing it in some manner is like kind of denying a part of our humanness too.
Yes, and I think the thing that activates a lot of people about that is that people don't feel comfortable holding people in their feelings without feeling a sense
Mm,
of responsibility to either change
mm.
or
Oh, yeah.
save or whatever, right? And this happens a lot in polyamory and relationship anarchy because jealousy comes up or
Oh, yeah.
feelings of whatever come up, right? And yeah, I've had to look at
Inferiority or,
and I've had to look at my partners and be like, I am feeling really jealous and I am feeling really sad. But I still want you to go on this date. Like
yeah.
please don't not go on this date. Like, you know what I mean? It will actually make me lose respect for you if you don't go on this
Mm,
date. I
mm,
want you to be able to look me in my face and disappoint me and go on
mm.
this date.
And pursue
Be-
your
yeah,
desire
and
or
pursue
your
your
highest.
desire.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, because how can I be sure that you want to be with me if you're
Hmm.
suppressing your desire to be with someone else?
Mm. I just had a question come up.
Please, please, please.
Yeah, because I was chatting with someone and they have a theory, and I don't know if it's true or not, about
Sure,
like
sure.
being able to go deeper if you just have one relationship versus if
Mm.
you're experiencing yourself. And neither one is good or bad.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
like, are you able to go deeper in one relationship, or can you go deep in multiple?
This is a really good question.
Because I
Yeah.
kind of feel like you can go deep in
I think
multiple.
so too, and this
But,
is actually something I've been complimented on by my partners, is
mm,
like they're like, "Wow, you're just really deep with all of your partners," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I want." And I
yeah.
think the reality is like, and I'm gonna say this in a way that kinda sounds egotistical, and I'm just gonna let my bad girl be okay
Say
with
it.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Please say it.
Oftentimes our relationships are a reflection of who we are.
Mm, mhm.
And the reality is, I know myself to be a very deep, deep, deep person. And if I am putting boundaries on depth, if I am saying that depth is only allowed to happen or can only happen with one person, I'm not fully experiencing the range of my depth,
Mm,
because the
mm,
depth that I have with one person will
mm,
never look like the depth I have with another person. And the depth I feel with one person will never be the depth I feel with another person. And so, if what I'm saying is I'm going to sacrifice depth with other
mm,
people to just focus on depth with one person, I'm actually robbing myself of depth in so
mm,
many different timelines and versions of
mm,
myself,
mm.
right? And I think
So
in terms
good.
of going deep with people, it's about how you use the time together. If I'm spending time with you, what are we doing in that time? Are
Yeah.
we just watching TV and staring at each other? Or are we doing somatic practices together? Are we doing
Mhm,
Kundalini together? Are we doing yoga together? Are we eye gazing? Are we doing sensual practices together? Are
mhm,
we having a new experience? Are we going somewhere and talking about philosophy? Right? Like,
mhm,
depth, I think, is so vast and diverse.
mhm,
And when we think about depth, we can think about it in the romantic way, right? I go deep romantically with someone, but maybe with my friend, I go philosophically deep in a way that I don't get deep like that with anybody else. And
mhm,
and with relationship anarchy, it is valuing those depths equally
mm,
versus saying that the romantic depth I'm getting in one relationship is better or more
mm.
valuable than
Yeah.
the philosophical depth or the connection depth that I'm getting with someone else or the physical connection depth I'm getting with someone else.
Oh, I love that. And I
Yeah,
love depth.
I do too. I'm like,
I
I don't
do.
know how not to go deep with people. It's like just
Mm-mm.
naturally how I am. And so I can go deep with a stranger I just met on the street. Like, you know
Me
what I
too.
mean?
I
Like,
when I find that happens sometimes.
yeah. And so I guess to your question, I think that's why I think it is possible, because
Mhm.
even though I'm in romantic relationships that are very deep, I can absolutely meet someone on the street today and have a
Yeah,
very deep conversation with them.
yeah.
Um, so I'm curious, what do you think about that?
Oh, no, I think that we can have depth with more than one person.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so he was kind of exploring that. He's like, "Okay, no, I think that you can really only go deep with that one." And I'm like, I disagree."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
He was
it's
calling it like choosing deep or choosing wide.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like both are pathways for like growth and evolution, but um just experiencing yourself, I guess, through one versus the multiple. Um Yeah, but because I've been deep with so many people,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
love that your distinction around in different types of ways that,
yeah.
yeah, I can totally go deep. And I identify as like a sapiosexual, so I'm like, yeah,
Same. Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
go
Yeah. Yeah.
deep.
I'm a demisexual too. Like it's
Yeah,
very
vulnerable,
emotional for me.
yes,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
like need to have like a super deep emotional connection with someone.
Mhm,
And that's the fun part. That's been the fun part for me is like, I am so attuned with my body because of RA. I am so aware of being able to
mm,
tell someone this is just a platonic connection.
mm,
This is actually feeling romantic for me. Oh, actually, this is feeling familial to me. This is feeling like caretaker energy for me. This is feeling
mm.
like, I want to be somebody that's in and out of your life like a little comet that flies through the sky every so
Aw,
often.
yeah.
And like being able to,
And how much do we love comets or
right.
shooting stars?
Yeah. And like, how beautiful is it to give someone the surety of your truth?
Mm,
To say, hey, I do feel something. Because this is the other thing. You feel things with people sometimes. And sometimes that's not romantic. And
yeah.
we don't talk about what we're feeling because it doesn't fall into the romantic
Mhm,
bucket. And so then you don't get to say things like, hey, I'm actually feeling really close to you. And like, I want to hold hands with you and be close to you, but I'm not actually feeling like I want to be romantic with you or have a romantic relationship with
mhm,
you. But being around you feels warm and being around you feels really
mhm.
nice. And so, can
Nurturing,
our
yeah.
friendship hold space for physical affection and hugging and cuddling and holding hands?
Mhm.
Sure, if that's what I
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
Right. And that freedom of knowing myself so deeply that when somebody also makes me an invitation, I know with my own truth how to respond to that
Mhm.
invitation. Because this is something I'm noticing a lot in some people is that their inability to not mirror someone's desire for them. So someone desires them, and instead of actually desiring them back, they just mirror that desire back to them. And they think they're in desire with that person, but then they get in a relationship
Ooh.
and then they end up not being in desire with that person. So then they break up. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of that happening. And it's because it's a misalignment
Mhm.
of where people are actually at in the relationship.
Yeah.
And because we have this feeling that we have to give in order to get. So let's
Mm.
say I meet someone and they're like, I want to get married and have kids and all of this stuff. And I'm like, man, I would really just like to lay it down with you a couple times. Like, you're just really attractive. I'm really connecting with, it wasn't going to be that serious for me. You know what I mean? If I wasn't doing RA or if I wasn't tuned into my body enough to know like that wasn't right for me, it would be very easy for me to just slip into a place of, well, let's maybe hook up a little bit. And then, but because this person would continue to advocate
Mm.
for their desire, I would, how many times have we heard that story? They
Mm.
fall into that
Yeah.
situation where they end up getting together, get
Wow.
married, and then are miserable
Wow.
because the attunement to the desire that they have, they don't feel comfortable mirroring that back to the desire that the other person has, right? And they don't want to meet that other person's desire with tension, which is that it's not fully aligned.
Mhm.
And so people will lie or mislead or suppress their own desire to then just align with what the other person wants because they're just kind of reflecting that desire back and forth
Mhm. Versus being honest or having
versus
the
being
courageous conversation or the
truth.
self-inquiry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I've felt sometimes before too where I could sense, someone maybe coming because they think they want a sexual relationship with me, but I'm like, "Are you sure you don't want just like healing or I
Yeah.
remind you of like a parental figure or
Yes.
or
Yes.
like, you
And
know,
sexual energy and healing
so
energy are
yeah.
so aligned,
Yeah.
so freaking aligned. And so you're right, especially as spiritual beings. Like the more spiritual you are, the more people are attracted to your healing quality. And then if you're also attractive on top of that, if you're also like kind on top of that, warm, it can be really confusing for people to have to
Mhm.
detangle that and be like, what
Mhm.
is it that I actually want out of this connection? And unless you are someone who genuinely has to think about what do I actually want or what does that relationship structure look like, it can feel very easy to be like, nope, I just want to be in a relationship because you
Mm.
feel that initial pull and you don't know how to detangle what that pull actually means.
Mhm.
And you're like, nope, I feel the pull. That equals relationship. And so
Mhm.
I see that
Mhm.
so many times with people where they're like, I don't know, I'm just attracted to this person. I feel connected to them. So that means we're going to get married and have a relationship. And I'm like, baby girl, like,
Yeah,
what if
he
that
might
just
have.
means you just want to hang out with them? Like,
Yeah, or he had a book recommendation for you. Like that's
yeah,
what one thing I took away from ISTA was like the following of desires and curiosities. And I'm like, dang it, I should have gone up to that person. Noted for future is that you may have a conversation with someone and it could be that they're going to give you a book recommendation or something as simple as
yeah,
that, that
yeah.
you don't know why necessarily or where the desire is necessarily coming from, but like explore it, be open, be curious. This whole episode, I feel like it's been one big mic drop, by the way.
Thank you.
Like,
I'm so
you've
glad.
been,
I've just enjoyed talking with you about it, and I really loved that you asked me about it at the retreat too. It's something I'm trying to be more vocal about. I tend
mm,
to, again, the good girl in me. I'm like, I'm not monogamous, so I should be quiet because nobody cares or nobody wants to be disrupted by that, right? Or activated by that or triggered by that, right? And I really appreciated you giving me so much space to just talk about it and to not feel like, even if people were triggered or feeling some type of way about it, that there was space and room for me to talk about it. So
for
thank you.
sure.
Thank you
Yeah. And
for
I think
that.
I think it offers an opportunity or a possibility.
Yeah.
If you, especially if you never have heard or know or have,
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
into it for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful that you came here with like such wisdom and clarity and ways of verbalizing things with such potent language. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I don't
I'm
even
so
think I
glad.
asked you, like, I had made up some questions, like, just in case.
Yeah.
I don't even think I got to those. So I may have to have you on again.
I would love that. I love talking about
Yeah.
relationships and I love talking about all of this. And I'm glad that you're also in your own exploration. And I'm super excited to
Hmm.
watch you grow in that. And
Yeah.
yeah, for anyone who's listening to this and is thinking about, what can relationships look like for me, again, nothing is ever permanent. So even if you're like, let
Mm.
me just take 6 months or a year to like play around with a love style that maybe doesn't feel super secure for me or it gives me some discomfort just to see what I can learn about myself, like
Mm.
I would encourage you to do that. Like just because you are a
Mhm.
relationship anarchist for a little while doesn't mean you have to be that way forever. Just because you do polyamory for a little while doesn't mean you have to be that way forever. Just because you've
Yeah.
been doing monogamy doesn't mean you have to stay with monogamy. And again, I want you to pick what is best for you, right?
Yeah.
There is no right or wrong answer. There's just the answer that is best for you.
Mm.
But if anyone needs a little permission, if their bad girl needs a little permission, this is your permission. Like, step out
Yeah.
here. We're ready to see you. We're ready to be with you. Like, and there are people ready to receive you and hold you in your desires and meet you there.
Mhm. And maybe check out DTF.
Yes, come check out
I love
DTF.
that acronym.
Anytime. I know, girl. I couldn't help myself. I was like, well, here we are. And it's crazy
Kudos to
because
your bad girl for coming up with that.
oh my gosh. I was having such a spirit. It was crazy because I actually had that spiritual download like while I was in a sexual interaction with one of my partners. I
Oh,
literally was like, hook me up. I was like, let's do this thing. I was like, I need some downloads. And he serviced me so well. It was so great. And for like an hour, I was just like, like downloads. And I'm like talking to him about it, like while and it was just, it was
love
great.
it.
It was, he's my, yeah. So again, like, again, the idea with partners that you can utilize them for all sorts of different various ways for your own evolution and growth, right? This partner that I'm talking about, we have like an ongoing agreement that anytime I'm like, hey, I need to download some stuff for the business, he's like, I'm coming. And so like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's so
That's
beautiful to get
juicy.
to explore people in that way and
Mhm.
to open yourself up, because had I not been open or receptive to the idea that something like that could happen for me, I would have never found it. And now I'm so
Mm.
grateful for all of the beautiful ways that, DTF has come together because I've allowed myself to explore downloads in a more free way or explore expressing myself in a more free way and really letting the bad girl come out to be like, yeah, it's all good. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's
Roar.
fine. It's fine.
Yes. Roar. Play. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much,
Play.
Renee. Yes.
Yes. Thank you for having me on here. I'm so
Oh,
grateful.
let me
Yeah.